Hey guys, Freddy here. Welcome back to another Retro Magazines. And this time I would like to present this Challenge Magazine issue 35. Now this came out in 1988 and I had a bit of difficulty finding exactly when, but I think I've tracked it down as Challenge Magazine at this time was bi-monthly. So there were only 6 issues that came out in 1988 and this was the 5th of them. So I guess it came out in around about October time. But I can't be exactly sure, but it's that sort of part of the year it came out. Now, Challenge Magazine's my favourite role-playing magazine because it is GDW's magazine of futuristic gaming. So it covers all the Games Designers Workshop games, which were amongst my favourite role-playing games anyway, you know, Space 1889, Twilight 2000 and all that. But also it covers other science fiction and futuristic games, which is my favourite genre. So there's no Dungeons and Dragons in here, there's no fantasy. It's all futuristic stuff and absolutely great. Now, before we go over to the desktop to have a look at the magazine, I'd like to talk about my patrons, who are all wonderful people, because they support me in doing this, giving me more time to go through these and make these videos than I would normally have available. So I'm very, very grateful to them. But if you'd like to join them, and you'd like to help the channel out, or you'd like to have access to these videos a week early, or you'd like to be of librarian or laird status and gain access to some of the articles from these magazines for discussion, or all of the stuff I've written, which is now up to 42 or so books, then there's a link in the description down below. If you clicked on that, it'd be very much appreciated. But anyway, let's have a look at Challenge Magazine issue 35. So, this is Challenge Magazine issue 35. Came out from Games Designers Workshop in 1988, as I said. And I'm not sure, after 30 years, why this was the issue which made me pick it up. But I would like to say it's the cover, because I do really like this cover. It's a Twilight 2000 image of the military scouting party. Obviously, they've got the tanks, they've got the machine guns and all that, but they've no food, because this is Twilight 2000. They've been abandoned by the military as the United States has collapsed. And one of them has gone out and he's found a couple of game birds. Don't know if they're chickens or partridges or pheasants or whatever, but they've brought back some meat. And they are wildly happy. And this really is evocative of Twilight 2000 to me, because it's the game where you do have all this military equipment, but you are fighting for survival. You're not like a Fallout type survivor where you're picking up pieces from the start and making your own guns. You've got all this military stuff, but the situation is just terrible. But anyway, inside we have the same production qualities as always. Games Designers Workshop have their top team on this. You know, we've got spiritual advisor Mark W. Miller, the guy mainly behind Traveller, Lauren K. Wiseman, who did lots of Twilight 2000 stuff, I think mainly set that and Space 1889 up. So many other great names here and such high production quality. So we go inside, we've got a memo, so the editorial, what's coming out from them soon, lots of news about Games Designers Workshop, obviously this is their magazine, but then we're straight into Citymaker. And it's a Twilight 2000 article on making up settlements and cities. We've got settlement sizes, dice you can roll to randomly generate it, lots of random information, and how to build up your settlement. So a simple sample town, 4 blocks. And you are cutting out these pages, obviously I have never, and piecing them together and making up little settlements. And the larger the settlements, you use more blocks to make up a street map. I think this is fabulous. I really like the randomness of it. I really like the way it can make up places which look somewhat real. You know, we've got rubble or earthen walls, the roads themselves. So we can build up different settlements after the Twilight War. I'm guessing that Space 1889 was very new at this point, because we've got an article about Victorian times and society. So we're talking about what it's like in Victorian society, but more specifically in the Space 1889 version, where we've got Martians and space travel. There's a lot of text in this one, and it's really fleshing out the city. I've got a feeling they were introducing us to. Now, Challenge itself is sprung out of the Traveller News Service, which continues through. So we've got a page of updates from around the galaxy, adventure ideas, what's happening in the meta story of Traveller. And then we're on to the Spice of Life for Megatraveller. And it's very much about one of the most difficult and time-consuming tasks which confront any referee is the creation of believable non-player characters. So we've got random tables for building NPCs here. You know, number of parents, number of siblings, sibling status, the cause of death of people, time they've known, relationships. Just so much information for randomly generating NPCs to flesh out situations. Very nice stuff. And then we've got fire aboard ship. So a encounter, adventure type thing about fires on vessels. Because obviously you can't run away from the fire when you're on a ship. You're trapped in with it. They're very dangerous in space. You're carrying oxygen and all that. A world invaded. An adventure for Traveller 2300 or 2300 AD, about a planet being taken over by Caphers. So we've got a map here, different encounters, what's happening in it. A very nice, quite well fleshed out adventure. We've got a new mech for Battletech, along with all the information about it. The Afterburner. We're on to Star Wars Team Recovery. So, an adventure about recovering a team. So there's passive sensor post, the layout of the shuttle for carrying them. And then an absolutely amazing article. This is kind of carried on over the years, because the H-Wing Strike Fighter, first seen here, really is carried on through the fandom. Because this vessel makes so much sense. In Star Wars, they obviously, when he was making the original movie, he used footage from World War II movies. So the X-Wings and TIE Fighters are Spitfires, Hurricanes, and various Messerschmitts and all that. And the Y-Wings are Mosquito bombers. And I can't remember the American version of it, I only remember the British one, but fighter bombers. They're quite agile, they can fight, but they can drop some ordnance. But what the thing that it misses is the heavier bombers that were used in World War II. We don't get those. We do in Star Wars The Last Jedi, one of the more recent films. They actually introduced a bomber with turrets and things to defend it. But the H-Wing Strike Fighter is kind of another step towards that. It's a much heavier fighter, it's got turrets to defend itself, and it's multi-manned, as well as having ordnance. So we've got, it's equipped with a laser cannon, 2 proton torpedo launchers, 2 light ion cannons, and shields. And it's an interesting little vessel because it does carry so many people, 1 pilot and 2 weapons personnel. It's a much heavier vessel than other fighters. It's not quite up to World War II standards with your Lancaster bombers, and again, I don't know what the American equivalents were, but manned by teams with multiple turrets defending them. But it's a nice step towards that World War II aesthetic which Star Wars was trying for. Then we're on to Star Trek, and we've got an article on spaceports. Spaceports in the Star Trek universe, spaceborne installations, approach corridors, lots of information for the Star Trek role-playing game and for the Star Trek setting. You know, space dock, L5, or the Lagrange points. Talking about different types of ships from the role-playing game which can be used. Nice advert for Sky Galleons and Mars. And then we're on to Renegade Legion, the 9876th Renegade Armoured Support Unit. And that takes us through to the end. We've got a review for Warhammer 40,000 Rogue Trader, GenCon Origins report of the different winners of the different awards. So, Best Amateur Adventure Gaming Magazines, Polyhedron, Best Presentation of Board Game, Shogun, Best Science Fiction Strategy Game, Star Cruiser from GDW. Best Computer Game, Bard's Tale 3 from Electronic Arts. I have to say, I haven't really played that one much, but did love the earlier Bard's Tale games. Review of Judge Dredd Companion, which I think I've covered on the channel before. Citi-Block, which I haven't, but I do have lay around. Some classifieds, an advert for Twilight 2000, and then an advert for 2300 AD Revision, the man's battle for the stars. Now, Challenge Magazine, as I said, is packed with great stuff for great games. This was a real go-to for me, because not only was it showing me games that I liked and providing me with useful information for them, but it was also showing me other games in the genre of science fiction games, which I was interested in and might go out and buy, especially when I had a sample of them. I believe it was from reading Challenge that I eventually picked up Space 1889. I believe I was reading Challenge before I got that one. But absolutely fabulous magazine. But as usual, I think I've whittled on for quite long enough, so thank you very much for watching. But as always, most of all, you look after yourselves. And I'll catch you later. Bye now.